Hey everyone, it's ENDYMION, and now we are officially outside of what could be considered Dragon Age Veilguard's biggest release window, which is of course its first weekend. So now we can look at the data and see where this game lands among the other games that have released this year. Besides this, we need to talk about things being discovered in the game, like the character Tash's diary that reads nothing like something from the Dragon Age world, and honestly, just Tash as a character in general, and the damage that it has done to Veilguard and the Sweet Baby Grift also got exposed too, and much more, so let's get into it. Firstly, let's look into the stats of how Veilguard is doing right now. I'm writing this video on a Monday morning, but currently the game is sitting at around 50,000-ish players, with its highest player count on Steam just being shy of 90,000, which is honestly surprising. I thought for sure that Veilguard would be able to break 100,000 players no problem over the weekend. I mean, Dragon Age is a household name within the RPG genre, but it's incredible how it was not able to do this on Steam of all places. It's also sad to see because Baldur's Gate 3 currently, at the same time, has more players than Veilguard does right now too. And it was also able to break 100,000 players over the weekend, even though that game is a year old at this point. This doesn't surprise me much since Baldur's Gate 3 at least actually allows players to roleplay in their playthroughs. You can be good, evil, in between, or whatever else you want to be in Baldur's Gate 3. You can also romance or even kill your own teammates if that's something that you want to do. I think BG3's player count confirms that when your game has actual real role-playing potential, it gives your game an almost infinite amount of replayability due to the possibilities, much like Dragon Age Origins was. But in Veilguard's case, besides your combat class that you choose or who you romance, largely speaking, the actual role-playing elements are pretty minimal so far from what I've played. I'm on chapter 8 of 12, and I just got the non-binary Qunari character Tash, and let me tell you, she is definitely the character that BioWare wanted to stand out in this game, but it's happening in all of the wrong ways. From the moment that you meet Tash, she's abrasive and rough. She's a warrior, and you recruit her because you need someone who's an expert in fighting and killing dragons. Her entire opening mission is pretty much you luring a dragon with bait, putting said dragon to sleep in order to claim items that it's protecting. Then these nameless Qunari guys want to kill the dragon, so now you gotta go wake up the dragon that you put to sleep and then save it and fight off the Qunari. And then the mission kind of ends with just Tash being volunteered by her mother to join Rook's party in stopping the blighted dragons, and that's kind of it really. From there, Tash quickly goes from being a standard party member to immediately pushing all the things that she's being criticized for by the internet at large. Tash feels the most out of place from a characteristic standpoint within Veilguard compared to the other companions available. Whereas I would say most of the other companions range from just safe or boring or completely forgettable, Tash kinda just comes off as a condescending and genuinely annoying person at all times. Her entire persona is that she feels like an emotionally stunted child in a woman's body who doesn't have a high enough IQ to comprehend the emotional state of the other people around her. Here's a clip from Sophia Norwitz, who's been playing the game like crazy for review. It involves Tash and the necromancer companion Emmerich, so please, watch this.
We could use a second sober voice.
I'm not drunk, you're drunk.
It's a figure of speech.
Huh, I was wondering when this would happen.
I don't follow.
You two didn't seem to be bonding.
I need one of these little needle things to dig some crap out of my armor. Death Mage won't give me one.
First, a bone threader is an extremely delicate instrument. Second, it's Emmerich. Tash, my name is Emmerich, not Death Mage, not Corpse Guy, not... I won't repeat the rest.
What? You are a Death Mage.
Why are all my attempts to converse with you met with scorn? What have I done to you, Tash?
You talk about corpses too much.
It's a rich topic.
No, corpses are messed up. They used to have people in them. You make a move like they're alive, but they smell wrong and they move wrong, and none of it is okay.
Oh,
Especially the ones with skin still on them.
So what I'm hearing is, Tash isn't into terrifying dark magic.
it's not all terrifying.
And Emmerich would appreciate not being bullied and called names.
Fine.
I'd no idea necromancy upset you so deeply, Tash. Quite honestly, I didn't think you feared anything.
I don't. But I could have said it was bugging me. I didn't think you cared what I thought.
Of course I do. We're colleagues on this journey.
Okay. Sorry I called you a liker. Skull liker.
Maybe you two can find different things to talk about around each other.
I'll try not to press on the subject of necromancy when we travel together, Tash.
Okay. Thanks. It's fine if I ask about it first.
In that vein, could we avoid any dragon trivia?
What? Who doesn't like dragons?
There's lots of other stuff to talk about. Tash knows Ravane and the Qun. Emmerich knows Navara and plants.
Plants. Plants are okay.
I have always been curious about the Lords of Fortune.
See? It's a start.
As you notice, Tash does not come across as someone who is emotionally an adult whatsoever. She is, like I said, very condescending towards Emmerich and refuses to even call him by his name, which ends up frustrating the guy, understandably. Emmerich, from what I've gathered so far from his missions and interactions, he's the nicest guy in the entire companion roster. He's as if Mr. Rogers was able to speak with the dead. I don't particularly care for his character much, because he, like many other characters, are just pretty milquetoast at best. But attacking or punching down to him like Tash does in that cutscene, it shows how she does not value other people's opinions or beliefs over her own. Which is ironic considering that Tash is designed by intention to be the character that everyone else must walk around eggshells with when they're in close proximity. That's why I went out of my way to recruit Tash last from everyone else available in the game. I wanted to see what conversations and party dynamics sounded like before I got her versus afterwards. And before you get Tash, everyone kinda just gets along for the most part. Sure, there's little things like Harding the Dwarf, who doesn't exactly trust the demon that's inside of Lucanus, but generally speaking, nobody is stepping on anyone else's toes, so to speak. But once you get Tash, though, it feels like the party dynamics immediately change. Everyone has to be nice to Tash, or she just lashes out and makes a scene of it. She is also incredibly thick-headed and can't seem to get simple concepts through her head. There's some cutscenes where Tash argues with Nev Gallus, the Ice Mage, about whether Qunari are able to wear dresses or not. I tried to shoot Tash down, but the limited dialogue options, they don't exactly allow you to really put Tash in her place when she speaks out of turn. Mostly anyway, from my experience, Tash just gets vindicated despite whatever you say. Which again, is why I say that Veilguard is not a true role-playing game compared to its competition. Because you genuinely cannot be mean or stern with any of these companions, even if you wanted to. Because if I was making a team of specialized people to take on a larger threat, you would want people that could handle their own emotions and not act like literal children. Because people who are mentally stunted in this way are liabilities to not only themselves but those around them. It's why in the military, if you have severe mental illness, you aren't exactly allowed to enlist. Because putting a gun in the hands of someone who is already prone to mental outbursts, hearing voices in their head and so on, yeah, it's probably not a good idea to give them a loaded firearm for everyone's safety around them. If every party member feels like varying degrees of coddled teenagers being rounded up by Rook as the guidance counselor, then the non-binary Qunari Tash is like a 5-year-old in a warrior's body. There's no legitimate ground for why Rook would put up with this clearly mentally unwell individual when it comes to the missions that they have in hand. And I do find it rather interesting that BioWare, in their infinite wisdom, decided to write a character who believes they're non-binary to be the most hard and annoying person to be around 24/7. while also making them condescending and completely incapable of accepting other people for who they are, yet always demanding that everyone else around them accept them for who they are. It's a very bizarre character choice. I often find myself just taking Tash with me on purpose when I go out into missions, and it's not because I like the character, it's simply because I've become grossly interested in seeing how the different party dynamics can lead to BioWare telling on themselves when presenting Tash as an awful person by her own volition. She is simply just not a very good person so far. I haven't gotten quite to the cutscene where she admits to her mom that she's non-binary, but largely speaking, Tash is a genuine standout amongst Veilguard's cast, but for all the wrong reasons and then some. And finding out that someone who is non-binary was responsible for writing Tash the way that she is, that doesn't surprise me in the slightest, because they absolutely nailed the concept of what being around someone who is like this is for the other people around them. They're uncomfortable to be associated with because you feel like you're always 2 steps away from an HR violation when you speak to them about anything. Tash is the kind of employee at a company who's going to regularly frequent the HR department with complaints, and all this ends up doing is isolating people like this from others because they're more trouble than they're worth. I genuinely don't understand why BioWare didn't realize this prior to releasing this game, because they ended up playing into the non-binary they-them stereotype so perfectly here that they actually made the most insufferable team member in Veilguard with flawless execution. Tash is a very mean and vindicative person who regularly lashes out and berates her own mother almost all of the time when they interact. Tash is also one of the rare Qunari who are able to breathe fire, which is something that should not be publicly shown to the rest of the world, because fire-breathing Qunari are usually hunted or exploited by other Qunari because of their unique gifts. And despite Tash's mom telling her not to display this ability in person time and again, instead, of course, Tash openly just uses her fire-breathing powers almost constantly. And it just ends up catching the attention of what I assume is her character arc-specific villain, who's some typical evil, nefarious male Qunari guy that's called the Demon King. Case in point, pretty much every problem that Tash brings to the table for the player and the rest of the team could be solved by Tash simply not being an absolute moron 99% of the time. And she's not even a moron in a fun way. She's just actually an idiot that has zero self-awareness. Tash is every tumbler they-them's wet dream, but all she ends up doing is exposing the grift of that ideology for what it really is. It's simply a self-absorbed manipulation tactic that is being used by others to place power over people around them through words and intimidation. Look, if I could, I would tell Tash to leave my party, but unlike Baldur's Gate 3, Veilguard is not a true role-playing game, unfortunately. So sadly, I cannot do much of anything when it comes to combating her moronic stances or her attitude. All I can simply do is affirm her identity, agree with her, and encourage her to keep being increasingly insufferable in order to gaslight the others around her into playing nice with her so she doesn't throw a fit and start breaking things. Tash is, in my opinion, the most condescending and on-brand character I've seen all year when it comes to being made for a modern audience. She is everything that is wrong with modern writing in video games and is a very good example of what writers should never do when it comes to making a new character in their story. Tash could have been this cool, goofy Qunari who likes to wrestle dragons and just be a joy to be around. But instead what you're left with is the living embodiment of the cat girl that you knew in high school who hissed at people and eats their lunch in the bathroom so that others feel sorry for her. Nobody's telling you to eat your tuna salad in the bathroom, just go outside for God's sakes. And as if that wasn't bad enough, you want to see how Tash flirts with Rook? Again, this is from Sophia Norwitz, who's attempting to romance Tash on purpose just to see how cringe things can get. So I warn you now that this will make you physically wince. Anyway, here's some mental torture for you to see.
Sounds like your mother was hard on you.
Nah.
I think your fingers are just perfect.
Yeah. So... are you trying to have sex with me?
Hadn't really thought that far ahead, but maybe?
Quick, think about us having sex. So now we need to figure out if it's cash lock or Tom lock.
And those are...
Cash lock's just flirting. You look and make jokes and maybe think about him for fun. Tom lock is serious. Like you want to grab that and taste its neck right by the collarbone. So which is it?
Just consume product and then get excited for next product.
Remember when I said Tash has the mental capacity of a literal teenager at best? This proves that even further, unfortunately. She is simply incapable of any nuance, but not in a fun way. She is just genuinely creepy in how she comes across at times. Getting right up in Rook's face, growling like some harasser beside Rook's neck, and getting in their face, confronting them on whether they want to bang or not. The best way that I can describe Tash is that she's Karlach from Baldur's Gate 3 if you removed all of the intelligence, nuance, and likability from that specific character. She is just self-insert big muscle mommy with a shaved back head with enough piercings to make airport security raise an eyebrow when she walks past. Everything about this character is like the purest, most condensed form of cringe that this game has to offer. If you remove Tash from Veilguard, the game would instantly go up a point in my opinion, out of 10 without a doubt. Sure, the game fumbles soulless, the companions aren't the best, and you can't really roleplay, which are all terrible sins, and why I think the game is nowhere near amazing, but if Tash just didn't exist at least, the combat would still be somewhat fun to suffer through while you explore the world. But knowing that this character exists and that there's nothing that you can do about it, it baffles me as a jaded BioWare fan. We went from nuanced relationships in Mass Effect and Dragon Age and Jade Empire and Knights of the Old Republic and whatever else, to this crazy Qunari thing in Veilguard here. Of course, there's also some in-game journal entries that were found that are apparently from Tash's point of view. And I mean, come on man, look at these, I'll read you them. Tash notes, meeting shadow dragons to talk gender stuff, writing notes to work through gender crap, showing to Rook for help maybe. Mayveris pretty, Tarquin tough, both trans, both open about being trans and said I could share stuff if it helped me on my journey. I did not ask for a journey, trans means was other gender, then changed, wait no, was always new thing, just now acknowledged. Not changing, affirming, trans woman is woman, not feeling right in body is dysphoria, whole big thing. Could feel like want to be guy instead of girl, no. Could feel like not connected to body, not everyone does this. Yeah, by the way, this is real stuff in Veilguard, it's in the journal codex, I'm not making this up or anything like that. There's more too. I mean, there's another part of Tash's journal which also reads, could feel uncomfortable with girls who act more feminine. No, I like girls. Girls smell good, but like hanging out with lords more than girls. Ashamed of not doing what your gender should do. Ugh. Getting euphoria is feeling right. Non-binary means not man or woman. Can feel like either. Can look like guy, girl, neither. Some use she, he, some swap, some use they, but still single with name. Flynn is non-binary, they are coming this way. Confusing, but sure. Also gender fluid, feel different on different days, can switch pronouns, don't think that's me. Agender, bigender, demigender, others, lots of different ones, not me, but okay. I think we can all agree that this is just completely ridiculous at this point. To think we went from the dark fantasy of Origins to this, it's honestly baffling to witness. This world is literally being attacked by evil elven gods, but this adult Qunari is instead more concerned with what pronouns that she should use, instead of dealing with the fact that Northern Thetis is covered in Darkspawn and Blights right now. It's so mask off for BioWare what they did here. Like, I know the game has other things such as constant white male villains, which I've showed in previous videos, and of course the infamous character creator and all of that, but if the game stopped at that and just went back to being a normal, or I guess somewhat normal BioWare game, I think people could have maybe pushed past those things, but the fact you get this nuclear bomb of a companion over halfway through the game is what really just curb stomps the entire experience for me. I wouldn't be surprised if Tash somehow wins Performance of the Year at the Game Awards for no other reason than what she represents. Because the actual performance of Tash is not great either. It just sounds like they found someone on the street to voice the character.
So, I'm non-binary.
But if she even gets nominated, oh boy, that'll be interesting to see. I also love how in one of the earlier conversations I showed in this video, Tash says, who doesn't love dragons? Like, you can't be serious. Nobody likes dragons in Dragon Age. They're literally gigantic creatures that burn people alive and raise castles and ruin people's lives in an instant. The Divine at the time, I believe their name was Faustine. Anyway, if you don't know, the Divine are like Dragon Age's version of the Pope, I guess. That's probably an easier way of explaining it. I can't speak, I'm sorry. And whoever the Divine is, who's always a woman, mind you, the Divine becomes the head of the Chantry, which is like the main religious group within Thetis. So Divine Faustine II literally named the current age that these games take place in as the Dragon Age, because the dragons were considered the greatest threat to civilized life. Like, that's why these games are called that in the first place. Sure, people might admire the dragons, I guess, from afar, but Tash saying, well, who doesn't like dragons? Nobody, Tash. Dragons literally burn people to death in your world. Humans went out of their way to ruin settlements so that dragons wouldn't settle near human society for a reason in your world. I swear to God, it's like they wrote the most Starbucks barista turned companion character ever. They couldn't make Tash more insufferable if they tried, or I guess they could. That's not a challenge, by the way. Don't ever do this again if you want your games to sell. I genuinely think the poison, if you will, that's holding Veilguard back from success is Tash above all else. The surgery scars and all of that too, yes, but Tash as a character, they can't be avoided. Like, she's there, dude. She's in your face. And at first, when I saw those player numbers on Steam anyway, I was convinced that there was no way the pre-order numbers were as bad as they were. By the way, I was told that Veilguard had less than 500,000 pre-orders across all platforms, and I didn't report on that originally because I was skeptical. I mean, this is Dragon Age. There's no way, right? No way a household name like this doesn't have at least 1 million pre-orders plus. But now that I'm seeing these numbers, that may actually be the real pre-order numbers prior to release. Of course, fellow YouTuber Hypnotic pointed out that if you look up via Steam, the owners of Dragon Age Veilguard went from around 500,000 plus to around 400,000 in a single day. These numbers fluctuate quite a bit, so I won't say 100% that they're accurate or anything like that, but it is weird that this game in its debut weekend is not gaining more players, but instead losing them. Could it be a glitch in the system on Steam's part? Maybe, but I mean, that's concerning no matter how you look at it. And look, I'm of two minds, right? On one hand, I'm a jaded BioWare fan who's loved their games in the past a lot. And to see their newest game in a series I love not doing so hot, it does wound me. Because I know how amazing Dragon Age can be, but it's so frustrating to see something that I love being used as a vehicle, like the Saints Row reboot pretty much, to just push stuff nobody wants or cares for. All we wanted was a sequel to Inquisition and the payoff of what was promised, but instead, I got a very disjointed first half of a game with milquetoast companions, and now I have Tash waltzing around like an HR nightmare. Like the fact that Grand Blue Fantasy Relink back in January of this year broke over 100,000 players on Steam, and that was a console game of a Japanese mobile series, and it got more players than what is considered a Western household RPG series. That is actually mind-boggling, dude. I figured despite the wokeness and whatnot that Veilguard would still succeed at least. I've been saying for like 2 months now, I still firmly believe that Veilguard will win Game of the Year at the Game Awards and other publications because of its ideology and all of that. But it's incredible to see that not even Dragon Age of all things is bulletproof to the fires of Gamergate 2. And again, none of this would have happened if the sheer hubris of the game industry wasn't so condescending against their consumer base. All of these flops this year, I still think that Concord is the worst flop, by the way. There's really no competition with that one. But man, all of this, and you'll still have people pushing back saying, nah, identity politics is still the way to go. How many more franchises do you people need to die before you just call it quits already? Apparently BioWare is now fully committed to Mass Effect 4 or 5 if you count Andromeda, and I genuinely think the reception to Veilguard will cause BioWare to pivot their direction. Or I'd at least hope so, considering if they don't pivot, they could effectively kill their studio for good. Like, is it really worth losing jobs and burning your studio to the ground because you want to play hall monitor with pronouns? Like, seriously ask yourselves that. It could be so easy, man. If Veilguard was like Origins and it was based, that game would have had Baldur's Gate 3 launch numbers no problem. But the hubris of these devs thinking that despite everyone else failing that they're going to be the ones to prove that you can pander and do well like this, while also not giving players any of the freedom of choice like Baldur's Gate 3 did, is wild to me. If Veilguard was like BG3, like it had all the identity nonsense, but it was at least only presented to you based on your choices, I think this game would have sold like hotcakes. But if anything, Veilguard proves how disastrous BG3 could have been, had they not given players the choice to actually choose their own experiences. This just gives me a headache. I waited 10 years and I got the most frustrating game that I've played all year. Every time I'm having fun or getting immersed, something stupid happens. Then there's Sweet Baby Inc. My last video I made, I told you guys about how the Powell Group is teaming up with SBI to bring their consulting to more games in the future. Well, now the Powell Group has effectively scrubbed all mention of SBI from their website entirely overnight. I'm not kidding, dude. If you go look up their website, you have screenshots people got like Savvy did on Twitter, which showed the before, as you see here, and the after, where suddenly things just don't exist anymore. That the Powell Group scrubbed their website of SBI as well, and some users were claiming that it was still showing up for them regardless, as this user said here. And then you can see that SBI is clearly on their clients list as shown here, but apparently, once they refresh the page, now it's gone suddenly. So it's obvious they actually thought that they could swing their meat around and say, look chuds, we're not going anywhere. And then people saw that and went, oh okay, so this Powell Group is going to get boycotted too then, thanks for letting us know, and now they're scrubbing things and acting like nothing happened. Real vote of confidence on your part there, guys. If you're not confident in your clients, you wouldn't be doing these things. But I guess you are in fact not confident because clearly you're just running scared now. Look, it's all about reputations in the end. It's all about you got in these sorts of spaces, and the fact is simple. If you see SBI is attached to something, you're going to immediately connect whatever that project is to being something awful in the making, which is pretty much always the case. It's just not a good business move. Maybe they're realizing that now, but it's not like they're not partnering with them. They're just hiding it. Which again, like I told you guys at the beginning of October, as I was told by sources, they're going to be hiding these things as best as they can going forward. But the surefire signs are going to be there regardless, and people aren't stupid. They'll find out, and when they do, whatever backlash you would have gotten will now get KO-Ken times 50 in response because you tried to be sneaky about it. And it's simply because people don't want to support these things anymore. I was told by another source, actually the same source Stuttering Craig has for the usual sales number stuff, that Dragon Age Veilguard got unusually high cancellations prior to launch as well. From what I'm told, Veilguard had a cancellation rate of about 14 to 15% across a 900 store chain in America prior to its release. From what I'm told, Xbox Deluxe versions had 695 pre-orders, but 108 got cancelled, so that's 15.5% of pre-orders there. Normal Xbox versions had 885 pre-orders, 128 got cancelled, so that's 14.5% of total sales. Deluxe PS5 pre-orders were at 1,872, and 254 got cancelled, so 13.5%. And normal PS5 pre-orders sat at 3,341 across 900 stores, and 466 orders got cancelled, which is 14% of orders. So yeah, all in all, about 14 to 50% roughly of pre-orders for Veilguard got cancelled following its release between Xbox and PlayStation for this 900 store franchise in America. I'm surprised pre-orders were that low in general, only 3,000 orders in 900 stores for a AAA household RPG franchise sequel? Damn. Regardless, it's pretty clear that what I was told about less than 500k pre-orders might actually be the case. I was given an exact number, but it was so low that I was like, nah man, you gotta be trolling me. And this was the same source I have for CD Projekt Red's DEI policies and Dune Awakening and some Assassin's Creed stuff too. And they've been on the money about these things too before, so I guess I can now share the exact number I was given prior to launch overall, which was 115,000 pre-orders. I personally think that number is likely somewhere in the 300,000, but of course, the influx of Dragon Age players on Steam since release could have just been people buying day one instead of pre-orders out of morbid curiosity, I guess. But since the game failed to break 100k on Steam and the PS5 trophy data is staggeringly low based on the data we also have, yeah. So I'm not saying it's 100% that it was only 115,000 pre-orders overall, but that's what I was told. But I wager it's gotta be at least 200 to 300 range, right man? Maybe I'm coping, I don't know, but 115,000 for a Dragon Age game, Jesus. But that's what I've been told, fellas. Veilguard is not performing as well as EA would have hoped, and I mean, you know confidence is down when IGN's own review of the game ends up saying that if we never get another Dragon Age game, that this is a good one to go out with. Like, wow, IGN, what a vote of confidence that is in your review. Look, I'm still going to finish the game. I'm about 27 hours in, level 28 or 29, I kind of forget exactly which. I'm mostly just doing the side content before moving on with the main campaign right now, but I'm also really digging into the whole Tash thing to see what else happens, and so far, and man, it's pretty bad. I'll keep you guys up to date, but for now, that's enough. Have a wonderful day. Take care of yourselves. Subscribe. Thanks to my supporters, and I'll see you in the next one.